Well, I want to welcome everybody today to another Constructus International webinar. Today we have Henry Boudreau from down south in the southeast part of our country, and Henry's going to talk about from struggle to success. Henry was born and raised in the construction business. His father was a successful contractor with an education in accounting. Henry spent his early years watching over his father's shoulders, learning by observing. Henry's education is in civil engineering and business. He has worked as a project manager, project engineer for many contractors on every conceivable type of construction, from residential homes to nuclear power plant construction. Nationally, Henry is known before a lot of different businesses, and he's been involved in a lot of business as a mentor to help them be very, very successful. He is the author of several self-study manuals for contractors, the book on how to market and sell your construction services like magic, another one that is titled 101 Powerful Tips for Jumpstarting Your Construction Business, and finally, The Contractor's Magical Marketing Tool Belt. Currently, Henry writes for over 12 construction trade magazines and newsletters each month. So I want to welcome Henry to our webinar today. And Henry, in talking to you and knowing and seeing your knowledge, I know these guys are going to be very anxious to hear what you have to say. So welcome to our webinar today.
Well, thank you very much for having me, and I am excited to be associated with Constructus and the ability that you people are presenting for my fellow contractors, and anything I can say that will help them, I hope that it does in big ways.
Great.
Today, if you'd like me to get started, I'll go right into it. Today, I'd like to talk a little bit about from struggle to success, because this is a common problem with contractors. And to get started, we need to answer some questions. Are you working long, hard hours? Basically, is your business consuming your life? Are you struggling to meet your financial responsibilities? It always seems that as soon as money comes in, there's not enough money to pay our bills. Are you feeling as though that business is just taking over your life? You really don't have a business, you have a job. Well, don't feel bad, you're not alone. Approximately 9 out of 10 contractors are experiencing the same problems, the same exact problems. And it has nothing to do with what type of contractor you are or how big or how small you are. Everyone suffers with the same problems. And we're going to take a little bit of an insight into that today, and hopefully I'll make you understand why you're experiencing these problems, but even more important, the things that you need to do in order to help yourself and help your business to grow to the levels that you really want to grow to. So we're going to start with another question. How did you get started? And that's a very good question. I can tell you how I got started. As Tom mentioned, I was born and raised in the construction business. My dad was a very successful contractor. My father had a degree in accounting. Now, any of you people who are around my age and can go back to the 50s and 60s and you're about 12 years old, your dad was a contractor, I can tell you right now how you spent your summers, probably the same way that I did. And that was, son, you're getting old enough now, you're 12, 13 years old, it's time to go out and work in the business. And that's how I got started. I learned a little bit of the trade, but I also learned something else. I had the opportunity to look over my father's shoulders, so I was fortunate. I learned a little bit more than the average person learns. The question is, how did you get started? Did you learn a trade? Did someone teach you how to hammer the nails and pour the concrete or fix the air conditioning or fix the plumbing? Is that how you started in this business? In other words, you learned a trade. Or did you learn the technical aspect of contracting? In other words, maybe you went to college, you got a degree in construction management or civil engineering or architectural. Maybe you worked for a contractor and he started teaching you project management or estimating. That is basically the technical aspect of contracting. So the question is, where did you learn it? Did you learn it out in the field or did you learn it in the office? Unfortunately, most contractors believe their construction skills will make the money for them. In other words, if I am the best carpenter in the world, I'm going to make buku bucks if I own my own business. The truth is, that's not the way it works. The result of that thinking is that contractors don't fail for a lack of good construction skills. Contractors fail for a lack of good business skills. And that is something that my dad taught me. He taught me something very simple, but it really means quite a lot. He said to me, you don't make your money in the construction side of the business. You make your money in the business side of the business. Now, don't get me wrong. My father was not saying you don't need to know anything about contracting. That is not what he was saying. What he was saying was, if you could be the best carpenter, the best plumber, the best air conditioner, you name it, whatever it may be, you could be top-notch. You could know everything you need to know about it. But if you are not savvy in the business side of the business, you're not going to make any money because maybe you're not charging. You don't have the right pricing model. Maybe you're not managing your business. Maybe you're not controlling the business. And those are the areas that end up costing you a lot of money if you don't have a handle on that. So today, it's really all about your business skills. And that exactly is what we are going to talk about in this webinar, because it is just so important. Now, how do I know it? Well, because I work with hundreds of contractors. I have been doing this since I sold my own construction business 20 years ago. After I sold the business, I said, what am I going to do with myself? And I thought the best thing that I could do was help other contractors because I recognized their deficiencies, things that they were not properly equipped with, and that is the business skills. But before I go further, allow me to tell you a little bit about myself. As you heard Tom say, I was born in the business. My dad was a contractor. His degree was in accounting. He really focused on the financial end of the business. My education is in civil engineering and business. Back in the 60s, there wasn't construction management courses. They really, I don't know where there was one from the city of Boston. And in Boston, there are more colleges than any other city in the world. And I'll be honest with you, if you wanted to go to college and go into construction, you became a civil engineer. So that's where my education came from. After I got out of college, I worked for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I worked in the transportation. I worked in bridge design. I worked in highway design. I worked in waterways design. I did that for a short time so that I could learn how projects were put together and how they were put out to bid, et cetera, and so forth. So I'm also trained in the business. I've worked for contractors. Actually, I've worked domestically and internationally. I have built everything from residential homes to nuclear power plants. So I've seen the full spectrum. In my early 20s, well, actually my late 20s, I had an opportunity to go overseas. And I considered that a rare opportunity for me to go focus on my work, save my money, and come back and start my own business. You see, that was always a dream of mine, to own a successful business. I came back and I did start that business. And just like everyone else, I'm no different. I fell into the trap, I fell into the chaos that sometimes we so easily create when we start our own businesses and we've got all the energy and all the desire and we're just trying to hurry up and get things going. But I have to admit to you that I did not get control of my business until I realized 6 months later I was officially bankrupt. At that point in my life, I realized I was about to lose my dream. I was going under. But I had a family to support. This was the thing that was going to provide the good life for me and my family. At that point, after a lot of soul searching, I sat down and said to myself, I really want this to succeed. And right now, it's being driven by my ego, not my mind. And what I did was I took time to think it out. I had to step outside of that box that I had built for myself. And I realized that I needed to focus, as my dad had told me, not on the construction side, but on the business side. And I did. That business ended up becoming one of Engineering News-Record's top 400 contractors. That business gave me $1 million cash in the bank by the time I was 32 years old. That business put on the right track. I was able to sell for multiples and walk away from it at the age of 41. So what I'm going to teach you today are extremely important to the success and to the level of success that you will reach with your construction business. I've been very fortunate. I've been very successful in the business. And I've made it my legacy now to try to help other contractors to do the same. And I do have a track record. I have helped many contractors turn businesses around. I helped one gentleman who's an architect who came to me whose business was $4.5 million in the hole. And he said to me, look at Henry, I just want to pay off my bills and get back on the right track. That person is on the right track today, 10 years later. 12 years ago, I was doing a seminar, How to Build Bigger Profits in Your Business. It's one of my premier seminars that I do, and I've done it for the National Association of Home Builders, Associated General Contractors, Associated Bill, you name it, I've done it for all of them, plus putting it on myself. And I teach contractors their numbers. And I had a young man come up to me. And at the end of the seminar, he came up and he said, Mr. Goodrow, I'd like to introduce myself. He says, I want to tell you that I'm a graduate from college. I have a degree in construction management. I'm in my mid-30s, and I own my own construction business. And I like what you have to say. And I can see that you can help me get my business on the right track. Because I have to be honest, sir, I'm not making any money. One year I make money, next year I have no money. Can you help me? We sat and we talked and went through some of the problems in his business. And I said to him, listen, if you want to help me, here's what you got to do. Unfortunately, at that time, he was so broke, he couldn't put the money together for me to help him. But he did. And we started on a journey together. Just 2 years ago, well, actually 3 years ago, in 2010, after working with me for 12 years on his business, at a mid-40s in his age, he sold his construction business for $57 million. He was willing and able to come into it with an open mind, to put in the time, and to work on it, knowing that it's his future he's working on. So I do have a track record with helping other contractors, and I'm sure I can help you too. But allow me to take you to the next part of the presentation where I would like to talk about your fundamental economic equation. You started your own business for very particular reasons. And I've been studying this my entire life because I always wondered, why did I do it? Well, there's basically only two reasons. And if you go down to the bottom of the screen, you see personal independence. One of them is financial freedom, and the other is freedom of lifestyle. Now, obviously, financial freedom means that you want to have lots of money. And I can think of some personalities that are very much like that. I would say Donald Trump falls into that personality. No matter if he's got $1 billion, he wants another $1 billion. If he's got $2 billion, he still wants $3 billion. That's a drive. It drives people. The other one is freedom of lifestyle. You want to be able to live your life the way you want to, come and go and do the things that you want. There's nothing wrong with that. These are the only two reasons I can even think of why anybody would take on all of the risk that comes with owning their own company. However, here's what gets lost. You're the owner of that company. That company is a separate entity. If it becomes you, your business revolves around you, then it's all up to you. It's a separate entity. Your job as the owner, as the manager of that business, is to set that business up correct, to set it up properly with all of the controls and systems, processes and procedures, and put it on the right track to achieve an end result. Now, that end result is very important. And when you lose that end result, you're very much going all over the place. You don't have a direction, and it becomes very difficult to follow through and achieve what you're trying to achieve. And I see this with a lot of contractors. They get so wrapped up in the chaos, they lose their end result. What is it that I'm really trying to do? Remember, it's a separate entity. It's your job to put it on the right track so it can achieve its corporate goals and successes. Once your business achieves the corporate goals and successes that it needs to, then you start to achieve your personal independence, whether it be financial freedom or freedom of lifestyle. Now, like I said, we're all a little bit different. For me, it's freedom of lifestyle. I like to be able to come and go and do what I want when I want. And if I've got enough money to do that, I'm very, very happy. So I'm not always trying to be that big, huge, multi-millionaire or billionaire. And I understand there are people who want that, and I said there's nothing wrong. But that brings us to an important question. Which one works for you? Which one of these two things is really your drive? It's really the thing that you want to achieve with this business. Because if you set this business up just to give you a paycheck, my friend, that's the wrong reason. You've got to have something better. In order to do that, here's what I'm going to ask you to do right now. Now, in your book, on page 4, at the bottom, I want you to answer this question. I want you to dream big. Remember when you were a kid, you could dream all these big dreams? What is it that you really want to achieve with your business? What is that dream? It's really important because we need to take that dream and turn that into an end result and make it become your vision so that you have a purpose to follow through every single day knowing that you're getting one step closer to achieving your goal. This is important because your vision becomes the end result that you desire. It's basically what drives you. And I want you to remember this because this is also very important. And that is, nothing happens until you, the owner of the business, have your business on the right track. You'll spend a lifetime being that little puppy or that little kitten chasing their tail. The key element here to achieving success is making sure that you have your business on the right track. Here's what we're going to go through today in this webinar. Number one, I'm going to show you the law of progression so that you understand where you are and you understand what you need to do in order to get to the next level. I'm going to reveal to you the missing control systems that are hurting your business because you don't have them in place. This is going to be worth 100 times more than just your time today or money spending sitting here with me in this webinar. I guarantee you, you'll walk away with some really important insight into what's missing in your business. But better than that, I'm going to show you what it is costing you. I'm not only going to show you what is missing, but I'm going to show you, because it's missing, how much it is costing you. We're also going to discuss the financial controls that you need to know. They're important. And when we talk about financial controls, here's some of the things we're talking about. We're talking about written budgets. Most contractors don't have one. When I ask them to see their budget, they say, oh, I really can't show it to you, Henry. Why? Because it's in my head. Here's the problem. When you allow anything to be in your head, instead of putting it down on a piece of paper, you're allowing it to be subject to change at any given moment, depending on how you feel. We're going to talk about cash flow, particularly in an economy like this. You need to understand cash flow. You need to be tracking it. You need to be thinking ahead so that you can take whatever corrective actions you need to do. Some of my contractors that are working with me are on daily cash flows. They're sitting there every day figuring it out and putting it into their cash flow spreadsheet so they can see where they're going. Next is estimating. It's not too uncommon for me to sit down and work with a contractor and discover that they have an estimating error. And every time they calculate the price of the job, that estimating error is kicking in. So we need to make sure that you've got good estimating. You also have to have good job costing, because there's no way you can estimate if you don't have some job costing historical data to base your estimate on. You don't want to be reinventing your estimate every time you sit down by saying, oh, I think. You need to have some historical records that show you, this is in the past, this is on average how long it took us to do this type of work. Now the next one is a big one, and I'm seeing a lot of it, and that is a profit model. Don't have one. Contractors live to take a draw, and if they're lucky and they make some money, they get a draw. If they don't make any money, they can't take a draw. That's all wrong. And that leads us to the next thing, which usually 9 times out of 10 is also missing with a contractor, and that is a pricing model. One of my biggest selling ebooks, as a matter of fact, you can purchase it right through Constructus, is How to Calculate Your Money-Making Markup. I've sold over 10,000 of these ebooks showing contractors the right way, the correct way to calculate their own markup rate so that they have a good pricing model. So that not only can they make money to pay their bills, but they can pay themselves a reasonable salary, and then they can produce a profit. There are a lot of different ways that we can calculate how much profit you should be making. But you should be making a profit, because you will never build wealth if you cannot first build equity. You cannot build equity if you are not getting a reasonable salary and making more than the reasonable salary, because that extra more is what you put away in a savings account, and you keep adding to it, and then you build equity. And once you start to build big amounts of equity, now you're starting to build wealth. The other problem a lot of contractors have with is their overhead. They don't have an idea of what they're truly, honestly spending. So overhead is very important. Let me put this as blunt as I possibly can. People, overhead is burden. It doesn't make you any money. What you really want to do is spend the least amount possible that you need to spend in order to do your administrative systems effectively. Overhead doesn't make you any money. Next is, of course, that missing reasonable wage. Most contractors go into business hoping to make some money, and if they do, they take a draw. You should not be doing that. You should have a reasonable wage calculated for yourself. And because these type of systems, these financial control systems, are missing for a lot of contractors, it's not your fault. You will learn the trade, or you will learn the technical aspect. You were never really taught the business aspect. But the good news is you can learn it, you can master those skills. So the question is, where are you now? And I want to talk about the law of progression. And I want you to think back to when you first started your business. I know, it was a long time ago. At least it was for me. But you probably had such high hopes. And you were so excited to be on your own, to go out and do your thing and be a contractor. And you worked hard, long hours. You didn't care, you didn't mind. You were starting your own business. And maybe you were fortunate. Maybe you did pretty good. And you got some money. And you got some big draws. And you thought, oh, wow, I'm off and running. This is great. Typically what I run into when contractors come to me, they say, you know what? I just can't seem to get to the next level. I'm stuck. I can't do more than X number of dollars a year. That is because they're stuck in the law of progression. You see, they started their business out, but now they're at the ceiling. I mean, they don't have the business skills to punch through that ceiling. They're basically trading or selling time for money. If I can make a paycheck, I'm happy. If I can make what I want to make a year, I'm happy. They're selling and trading time for money. In order to get from this level to the next level, it's actually a two-stage process, and I call it your knowledge gap. You still should have, hopefully you haven't lost it yet, those original goals that you wanted to achieve for your business, but you're nowhere near it. There's a huge gap. And that's the knowledge gap. When we're selling time for money, we're working for a paycheck. And people, this is a very limiting stage. I hate to tell you. I see people who have done it their entire life. And now they're 60, and if they can make any money, they're happy. If they can make a paycheck, they're happy. This is not where you want to go. You want to be not only making a reasonable wage for yourself, but be able to make that profit and control your business so you can steer it in the right direction to do that, so that you can reach your goals and build that wealth or that equity that you wanted for yourself. But don't feel bad. About 90% of contractors are stuck in stage one. About 90%. They're all at different levels, but that's where they are. Let me see if I can explain this to you. I work with a lot of contractors, so it's not uncommon for me to see the same situations, the same scenarios, the same numbers, whatever you want to call it, to pop up. The average salary for a person doing about $1 million a year as a contractor averages out to about $70,000 a year. Now you may say, whoa, man, I'd love to make $70,000 a year. Maybe you're making less. Maybe you're making $40,000. Maybe you're making $50,000. However, the next important piece of information is the most common thing that I see. First of all, contractors tell me they're working about 60 hours a week. Well, when you own your own business and we sit down and we start really talking about it, it immediately starts to jump up to 120 hours a week. So for simple mathematical reasons, I'm going to say 100 hours a week. 100 hours a week, and if they took 2 weeks off, that's 5,000 hours a year. Now take the 5,000 and divide it into 70,000, and that's an hourly wage of $14 an hour. But we have a problem. There's something missing. And that is called your hidden burden. And they claim right now that it's about 55%. Those are the taxes, the fees, the things that you're not thinking about that we're paying, that you have to pay because now you've taken this cash draw out of the business. You've got to pay taxes on it. You've got to go pay all your insurances for you and your family. You've got to pay any other types of fees and taxes, sales taxes, and all those things, which means you're really making $7.70 an hour. That is the effective spending money that you've got out of the original $14 an hour. Congratulations, you're earning minimum wage. So this is the reason why I need to pull you back from the course that you're taking and try to get you on the right course so that we can take a hard look at your business and get you out of stage one where you're selling time for money. Now the next stage, stage two, is your learning stage. You see, you need to learn some things that you're not really aware of right now. And so we need to move you from stage one, where you're selling time for money, working for a paycheck, into stage two, where you can start learning how to manage your business effectively. About 8% of contractors will go to stage two. Not a lot. Not a lot at all. 8%. I've been doing this now for almost 20 years. These numbers are insanely accurate. So now you need to learn how to put into place, into your business, the financial controls, the processes and systems to help your business go to work for you. You see, that's my philosophy. I have a couple of philosophies. Number one, you should not own your own business if you're not in it to make a profit, to make money, to build wealth and equity. You'd be better off to go to work for somebody because you'll make more than the $7 or $8 an hour. Number two, the single most important thing is if you're going to own a business, don't own a business that you go to work to. Own a business that gets up every morning and goes to work for you. That's what you really want. And that's all part of stage two, the learning stage, because you're going to learn things. Now, in order to do this effectively, you've got to, number one, be willing to put some time into it, whether it be listening to a webinar, going to a seminar, reading a book, or even better, consulting with a business coach to help you. You've got to be willing to put the time, whether it's an hour a week or 2 hours a week, into it. Number two, you've got to be willing to keep an open mind. And that's the reason why it's such a small amount. You see, contractors by nature were egotistical people. We believe in ourselves. And we believe we can do it. And we'll beat our head against the wall until it's a bloody pulp, but we'll keep, I can do this, I can do this. You've got to drop that. You've got to be willing to say, you know what, I don't have the knowledge, I don't have the tools, but I can learn them. So you've got to have an open mind because you're going to be approaching things that are radically different, especially to the way you're thinking, your mindset, your approach right now. And of course, the third thing is the investment. You've got to be willing to put the investment. The investment consists of a lot of things. It consists of time. It consists of money. It consists of changes in your business. That's all an investment into your future because you need to learn before you can go to the final stage. This is the most important stage, and that is stage three, implementation. where you actually start to implement into your business the systems, the controls, the processes, the procedures, the business mindset. I like to call it your IBM. You fire up your IBM. IBM meaning not International Business Machine, but your intelligent business mindset. You fire it up. Now you're cooking. Now you're doing things right. You're building a business that goes to work for you. Wouldn't you love that? Instead of you getting up every day, early in the morning, spending so many hours not knowing what's going to happen tomorrow. Wouldn't you rather get up in the morning and know that your business is already working for you? Stage 3 is implementation. This is where you take everything you learn, you start implementing it into your business, you correct it, you tweak it, you modify it, whatever you have to do. Sadly enough, that's less than 2% of the contractors who ever get to that stage. Just like my good friend that I told you I worked with for 12 years. He had that investment, the investment of time, the investment of money, the investment of learning, the knowledge, the investment of implementing it into his business, but his reward back was humongous. Now, why is it that so many contractors are still stuck in stage 1? Because they have great construction skills, inadequate business skills. I cannot emphasize this enough. Remember, I was there once myself, and I had to sit down and do my soul searching so that I could sit down and come to terms with myself that I was not applying the right business skills, that I was thinking I could just work long hours and I could make it work, I could make it happen. Construction skills will only take you so far, but your business skills are what will take you to your goals. Now, let me ask you a question. Would you like to discover your leaking business bucket? That is, that bucket that's leaking your money out of your business because you do not have these control systems in place. And also, how much it is costing you. I'm going to ask you to go to page 5 of your workbook. And I am going to take you through a series of questions. And I will go through them one by one. I just need you to keep an open mind and to answer them. Yes or no. I couldn't have made it any more simpler.
Henry, can I interrupt you just a second? Will Smith,
Yep.
I'm sorry. I want everybody to know your workbooks have been emailed to you, so they are available in your emails. Sorry, Henry.
No problem. But you still have it up on the screen if you haven't pulled it off of your email and printed it. It's right there. So take a piece of paper and a pencil right now. And on number 1, answer either yes or no. Do you have a written overhead budget? Do you sit down and calculate for the next year, by month, by line item, which means how much I'm going to spend on telephone, how much I'm going to spend on advertising, how much I'm going to spend for office salaries, how much is rent, how much is utility? Do you do that line item by line item? Yes or no? Do you have a reasonable salary calculated into that written overhead budget for yourself in which you pay your taxes, Social Security, Medicare, and all that stuff, SUTA and FUTA? Do you have that in there? Yes or no? Number 3, do you project your needed sales for the year? Do you have a good handle on how much you can conservatively nail next year for sales? Number 4, do you have an established net profit that you want to make at the year end? After you've hit the sales that you wanted to, paid off all your expenses including your reasonable salary, a leftover net profit that you want to make. Number 5, do you estimate jobs by stick-built estimate? Now, the reason I ask you this and now I'm revealing what an old timer I am, but a stick-built estimate is where you sit down and you calculate how many 2x4s you need, how many nails, how many sheets of drywall, plywood, cubic yards of concrete, cubic yards of dirt. That's what I'm talking about. Do you sit down and do a takeoff, and out of that, do you develop your production rates, your materials list? That's a stick-built estimate. Or do you take a look at it, and do you average cost out? Do you say, well, that's about 2,000 square foot. I did a job about a year ago. It cost me this. That's what I'm talking about, unit pricing. I'm working with a contractor out of California. He's been very, very fortunate, but he's really walking on thin ice because that's how he does it. He takes a look at the job, and he says, I think that's worth about $20,000. That's a guesstimate. That's not an estimate. I guess it's worth $20,000. We want to have accurate information because that's the only way you can control something, and then afterwards it's the only way you can check it and make sure if it's accurate or not. Number 6, do you calculate your ACC? ACC is your average collection cycle, how long it takes you to collect your money, and do you calculate your capital requirements? Capital requirements is the amount of money you need to have behind you at all times so that you can run your business and pay your bills. And this is particularly important today because we all know bankers are not lending money that freely. So to go to the bank and get a line of credit is rather difficult today. So you may have to be your own banker, and reality of it is you probably do want to be your own banker. Number 7, do you reconcile and close your financial books each month at the same time? You should have a dead fast rule that you close your books by a particular time of the month, whether it be the 10th of the month or the 15th of the month, and you immediately run all your financial reports, and then you sit down and you study. You study what you're doing, what you're spending. You study where you are to where you thought you were going to be. And, of course, then if you have to, you make any adjustments you want to. That is called control, people. Do you do it? Yes or no? Do you compare your budget to your actual cost and the variances? The variances are, I'm spending, a little bit more than I expected, or I'm making a little bit more. That's a variance. Number 9, do you do a monthly cash flow analysis? You should. Matter of fact, some of the contractors really should do daily cash flow analysis so you can see where you're going to end up at the end of the month. Do you track your capture rate? Capture rate is how many jobs do you go out on before you finally get a job? Do you have to, if you had to go out on 10 jobs before you get a done deal of 1, then you got a capture rate of 10%. So I hope you understand that. What is your capture rate? 11, do you market your construction services? I can tell you right now that the people that I've been working with who are doing the financial controls and doing the marketing, both of them, hand in hand, are doing very well. When I say very well, not as well as they would like to naturally, but they're getting more than their share of the marketplace. You see, the economy is in a slump. This economy that we're in is going to be with us for quite some time. It's not something that's going to end in another year or so. If you cannot get control of your business, I can't tell you how much longer you're going to last. But one of the things is you need sales in your business, and that's what marketing should be doing for you. It should be generating leads, potential prospective clients that you can go out and you can sell them and capture leads. Do you track your marketing efforts? Do you know what is working and what is not? You need to track that because there's no sense spending money on something that will not bring in leads. It's money that you can take and put someplace else to better use. Can you describe in detail your best type customer? Now, this is extremely important because not everyone buys from you. Not everyone buys from me either, and I understand that. But can you describe to me your best type customer? You know, that customer who was excited to have you do the job when you sold it to him. He paid you your price. He paid you on time, happy with your work, raves to everyone about you. Wouldn't you love more of that type of customer? Well, if you don't know who they are, if you can't sit down and put the characteristics of that best type customer, how do you expect to find more of them? Because I can take you to a mailing list where you can go find the exact same type of persons. In my book, How to Market and Sell Your Construction Services Like Magic, I discuss this. It is what I call the common thread that weaves your type of customers together. And your marketing should be geared towards those people because they're the ones you're going to close. You don't want to close the others. They consist of people who will never buy from you, and also the client from hell. You know who they are. They get up every Monday morning, eat their own young before they start in on you. You most certainly don't want any of them either. So you need to be able to sit down and describe your best type customer. Now, you may have to ask questions to find out more about them, but that's something you must do. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever purchased a piece of electronic equipment, and then when you got it, you go to fill out the registration warranty card, and they ask you all these questions? Why are they asking you those questions? You just bought their product. They want to know all about you so they know where to target their marketing. You need to be doing the same exact thing. The last question is, do you calculate your markup based on projected sales and desired profit? Now, I'm going to ask you to do a very simple thing. What I want you to do is add up all the no's that you've got. Then I put up on the screen yearly sales or volume chart. If you do up to 700,000, there's a point value of 5,000. You take the number of no's that you've got and you multiply it by the 5,000, and that is your leaking bucket. If you do 700,000 to 1,000,005, it's 10,000. The number of no's times 10,000 is your leaking bucket. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, it is not unusual for a contractor doing around $1 million to be leaking anywhere from $80,000 to $130,000. It is not unusual. It's the most common thing I've ever seen. These numbers are insanely accurate. You may look at it and say, there's no way that I'm leaking that much. But if your business was structured properly and set up properly, that's probably how much you really should be making. You're just not making it right now. It's almost as if you got a hole in your pocket because you do not possess the skill sets that you need to control your business and put it on the right financial track. And I don't mean that in a bad way. Don't feel bad about it. No one taught it to you. And even if you did, if you were like me and you went to college and you got a degree in it, you might have forgotten about it. So maybe you need some help to get yourself back on the right track. But what do you have? You have two very important things. Number one, you now know what you need to correct in your business, and that is priceless. You cannot put a monetary value on that other than the one that you just calculated, which is how much it is costing you. And that is usually, when I work with people, that's the first thing I help them grab, is let's plug all the leaks in the bucket by learning all of these systems and controls and processes and procedures. Let's get them in place, because it's just like patching every one of these leaky spots in your bucket, and that is the first amount of money that after a period of time, and it could be 4 months, it could be 7 months, it could be a little bit longer, depending on your ability to work with me and put the time in and do the things that you want, but this is the money that comes back to you. So it's a win-win situation. However, understand this. That's for every year you've been in business, and until you fix your leaking bucket, it's how much you're going to continue to lose every year that you're still in business. And that, my friend, is probably a lot of money. How it really works. You don't make your money in the construction skill set of the business. It is important to possess those skill sets. But that is not where you make your money. That is where you do the work most productively, most efficiently. It is more important that you focus on the other part. You make your money in the business skill set of the business. And the reason for that is because I usually, when I work with contractors, I teach 4 cornerstones of the business. Number 1 is vision and goals. If you remember in the very beginning of this webinar, I asked you about your big dream and your end result. That's vision and goals. So I've already made you aware of it. It's really important. Because if you know where you are right now and where you want to go, we've got a better chance of building a strategic plan to get you there. But if you do not know where you want to go, nor do you know where you are right now, it's up for grabs. Next is finance and administration. It's how you handle your financial end of your business, your overhead, your numbers, your planning, your control systems, all those things. Another cornerstone is marketing and selling. Marketing and selling. Let me talk about that for quickly 1 second. Marketing is nothing more than generating good leads. And if you generate good leads, then you've got a good capture rate because you're hitting your best type customers. And I hope that makes sense to you. Because I've seen people who have been able to really define their best customer and develop a marketing promotional campaign that targets them and hits the right emotional buying triggers to have a 90% or more closing rate. How would you like to have a closing rate 60%, 70%, 80%, 90%? For every 10 people you go visit, you close 9 of them. They pay your price. They're good customers. And that is the selling part, too. Selling is, well, once we get the lead that's generated from marketing, is selling them the job and getting wet ink or the done deal. The last cornerstone is people and productivity, because that's what goes on out in the field. We've got to produce the job. It's got to make a profit. Each and every one of your jobs is a mini profit center. So you've got to have good control systems in place so that people out in the field understand what they want to do, and you've got to have good systems in place in your office so that people in the office can monitor it and provide you with the report so you can make the decision. These cornerstones create the foundation that you need to build a successful business on. Now, we've got to talk a little bit about understanding your numbers. You need to understand that your numbers are your driving force. It is how you either make money or you lose it. And I'm sure if you're like me, you don't like to lose money. One of that is capital requirement. It's about money. How much do you need to fund your operations? Why is this important? Well, number 1, banks are not always willing to lend money when you need it. And when you do need it, you're now a risk, and they don't want to do it to help you. So it's always in your best interest to be aware of how much money you need. And very quickly, I'm going to take you through this. Let's take a look. Capital requirements. You sit down, you calculate your cost of sales for next year, and say it's going to be about $15,000 a month when you average it out. Then you figure out your overhead for next year, and that calculates out to about $8,000 a month. Now, you might say, I need $23,000 a month in order to cover my expenses. But what about your ACC? Do you remember I mentioned that when we went through the test? That is your average collection cycle. If it takes 2 months to collect your money, you don't need $23,000. You need $46,000. So collection is a big thing. You need, the quicker you can get your hands on the money, the less money you need to fund your operations. And I hope that you can see this right now. You need to go back and calculate yours. Let's talk about capture rate, because I did mention that more than once already so far. For simplicity's sake, let's say that you have a capture rate of 10%. You have to go out on 10 jobs in order to get a job. That's what that means. It could mean bidding 10 jobs just to get one. It could also tell you how much volume you have to bid. Let me explain. If you want to do $1 million in sales, you need to bid 10 million in jobs. I bet you never looked at it that way. But that's what you're going to have to do until you improve your capture rate by focusing on your best type customers with a good, highly targeted marketing program. You're going to need more sales in order to get more done deals. But let's drill a little bit deeper. Let's say your average job is $10,000, and you need to bid 1,000 jobs with a capture rate of $10,000. That's 20 jobs a week. Now you may say, Henry, I can handle that. That's 20 jobs a week. You may think you can do that. But what if it takes 10 hours to bid your average job? That amounts to 192 hours per week. You can't even get to the rest of your business. You obviously don't have enough time. Here's what I've showed you. I not only showed you the beginning process to start calculating when you need to hire people, but I'm also showing you where your money is going. One last, more important element. Most contractors hire additional help to make their lives easier. At least that's the general intent. However, without good systems, processes, and procedures in place, they found another way to throw their hard-earned money away. You may say, why? Well, very simple. I want you to understand how it works. Because the numbers do not lie, the systems and processes will make your life a lot easier. You either know them or you don't. And if you don't, you're losing money. How much are you really making? I want you to answer these questions. I want you to go to page 7. How many hours do you work a week? How many hours in a year? How much do you make in a year? Multiply it by 55%. Subtract that from the amount that you make. Take that and divide it by the yearly hours. And this is your hourly rate. Are you paying your employees more? Then you are trading time for money. The most common missing link, a plan or a strategy to get you from where you are right now to where you want to end up. The missing elements, financial control systems, poor pricing model, poor lead generating systems, poor selling systems, poor estimating systems, poor job costing system, poor employee systems. These are your missing elements. Unfortunately, there are no quick fixes, Band-Aids, or magic pills. Success is governed by specialized knowledge. Having a proven business model. The element of association, hanging around, well, just like hanging around with people here in Constructus. You're hanging around with people who are success-focused. Do the same in your own city. Hang around with the people who are focused on success. It does rub off. You'll be surprised. And of course, then it is having a focused end result. What is it that you truly, honestly want to achieve? And where are you right now? And then we can start working on that strategy or that plan to get you there. But you have to be willing to get help. Here's the good news. You can change it today, starting right now. You can do this. I want to go over the 4 powerful tips that you've learned today to help your business right now. Number 1, I've taken it in this hour and I've brought you through and I've taught you the law of progression. I've helped you uncover the missing systems in your business, and you discovered how much the cost is to you. And last, that revealed what you need to do. You probably have learned more on this webinar in this one short session of 1 hour than 98% of contractors in this country have learned in their entire business lifetime. If you enjoyed this presentation and would like to learn more about business development and learning programs, you can go right to Constructus. You're here right now. You can check out the experts that are there. You can check out the other webinars, and of course, you can check out me if you like. I'm here. I'm ready to help you. All you need to do is take the next step. I want to thank each and every one of you for being on this webinar. And I hope, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, I hope that I was able to give you a better insight as to where you are with your business and what you need to do in order to get it to the next level. Thank you very much for being with me.
Well, thank you, Henry. This has been a treat to listen to you and see what you had to present today. I opened up the mics for anybody that has any questions. So if you do, feel free to ask. But while I'm waiting here, Henry, I tell you what, I come across this day in and day out as I worked with contractors, and I see the chaos. I see how people work themselves to death. And you're right on target, you know. And I know you've been doing this for years, and you've seen it for yourself. But you know, folks, it's not worth it. We want the business to work for you, just like Henry mentioned. And what a great point, you know. We all have these dreams and aspirations of making money, but we have to improve our knowledge, and that's what we're here with Constructus. So, any questions that we have out there? Henry, when you start working with a client, and I've got a few clients that we're dealing with at this point, what are the first steps that you take to go work with them?
Well, I think the most important first step is to uncover what their problems are, what is really costing them money. Because the way I see it, my job is to help them, is to improve their business. And that means that if they can't see more money and they can't see their life getting easier, then I'm not doing my job. So when I start out with a contractor, it may take a couple of sessions, depending on how much time we put in, but to uncover the deficiencies, the leaking bucket, whatever you would like to call it, the problems that they've got in their business, so that we can focus on that. Once we start to correct the leaking bucket, and once we start to plug those leaks, they start to see an improvement in their business. They also see a huge improvement in their lifestyle. So they can start to see, and it's not uncommon for them to say to me, I can now see the light through the woods. And it's a true statement, because now they can start to see things falling in place and making their life a lot easier. The question is, continue to work at it, continue to improve other areas of the business, and it does take time. I'll be right up front and I'll be honest, and Tom, I'm sure you're very much aware of what I'm going to say. There are no magic bullets. There are absolutely no quick fixes. It takes time. It takes time to uncover the problem, and then it takes time to correct the problem, and then to move on.
I totally agree, Henry. And both in our conversations that you and I have had, we've worked with businesses, and both of us have worked with athletes as well. I know that you in the martial arts area and myself in the baseball, and it's just anybody who's going to be successful at anything has to put the time in, and they have to acquire the knowledge to do so. And
well, if you're going to own your own business, you need to subscribe to the fact that it is a constant and never-ending process. I am still learning. I'm 65 years old. I'm still learning. It never ends. if you think that you don't need to know anything more, you're doing yourself a lot of damage. Because particularly right now, 7 years ago, did you think that we would be in this economy, in this situation that we're in right now? I can guarantee you didn't. 7 years ago, your phone was ringing off the hook and people were calling you, throwing money at you. Today, the phones aren't ringing, and it's very tough to get people to let loose of their money. So you can see how quickly things change, and you need to change. If you're still carrying the same mindset that you had 7 years ago, then it's not going to work today.
Just as an ending note here, what do you foresee coming down the road for changing? I mean, from the day that you started, the business is business, and you always have to have the foundations of business and the cornerstones, as you were speaking. But do you see anything else coming up that you see as a trend?
Well, I think the trend right now is that the consumer is getting smarter. The consumer, due to the web and the internet and so forth, can do a lot of research, can get a really good handle on exactly what they want and some great ideas on how much it's going to cost them. However, we need to remember one thing, and that is people purchase with their emotional buying triggers. They use logic to justify it, but it's really, that part hasn't changed. So if you've got a good marketing program and good control on your business, you basically can ride out a storm like what we're doing right now. And this economy is going to be a very slow crawl out of a deep hole. We still are taking a look at, even though housing starts have ticked up a little bit, it's nothing in comparison to what we've lost or where we used to be, and so is pricing. Even though the pricing has moved up a little bit, if you read any of the other news articles, so are construction materials, lumber, drywall, all of that is increasing in price. So you really need to be on top of the game. You've got to have a good handle on your financial, because you're going to have to adjust a lot more quicker now than ever before. You're also going to have to really get highly focused with your marketing, because the prospective customers are different than they were before. So that's a changing trend. One of the things that I like to see contractors do, and they're usually a little bit behind on that, is their ability to use technology to their advantage. And that is a big plus if you can use technology and understand what you're going to have to do to adapt it on your end and how you can use it. There are some great technology that we just didn't have 20, 30 years ago, even 10 years ago. We didn't have it. 7 years ago, we didn't have the iPad or the iPhone, and you can find some great construction management, construction estimating products that work off of those platforms. So things are changing at a very, very fast pace. And if you're not subscribing to the fact that you need to change, that you need to improve, then you will be left behind.
And I totally agree with that, and especially on the technology side, because that can, the old way of job costing, the old way of tracking time on jobs, the old way of tracking change orders, where you have the paperwork shuffle and all that, is so laborious and time-consuming. And I think that is, from the time standpoint, is one of the reasons why a lot of contractors don't follow through to do those things, because they don't have the time to track all the different pieces of paperwork. So folks, with the technology we have available and the softwares that are out there to do the project management and your estimating and your accounting, to hook them all together, those features and those programs are out there for purchase. And I highly recommend being able to research and to utilize that technology like Henry's saying. Well, Henry, thank you. It's been great. I know that you have a lot to offer to not only our subcontracting contractors, also our service contractors. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to that. Folks, please look at Henry's bio on our website. It will give you an opportunity to look at his books that he has. for sale, as well as the offer to be able to work with him one-on-one with your company. I think if you have the opportunity to do so, again, your company will greatly benefit from his knowledge. So, again, thank you, and we hope you enjoyed the webinar.